Okay, I'm going to assume that it's recording.
I
So,
don't, did it say record?
yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
even
it's
hear.
recording. It's
Okay.
recording.
Wonderful. So we're good to go? All right, wonderful. So, as my sister said, I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. Both of my parents are activists. My grandmother was an activist. My father was the head of the Black Panther Party here in Denver, Colorado. And that's so I've been inside of activism and doing activism all of my life. After graduating from high school, I went to Howard University out in Washington, D.C. And that's where I majored in communications. After I left Howard University, which was a magnificent, beautiful experience, because growing up in the United States, specifically in Denver, where there was only 12% of Black folks, to be around all Black folks at Howard University during the time that I was there with Sean Puffy Combs, uh, there with the Wayans brothers. All of us were at Howard during that time. It was really a beautiful time to be there. Uh, but after I graduated, because I was a communications major, African studies minor, I decided to go and live and work in Africa for 10 years. And so with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, the 3-year-old now is the one that Trina's talking about, got accepted to Cleveland and is out there now. We moved to Ghana, West Africa, where we lived and worked for 10 years, where I raised them and gave birth to my youngest, who's now 15, in Ghana, West Africa. I came back here in 2010, and when I returned, I really got involved with the movements again, and then Black Lives Matter popped off a few years later. Um, this, that, the third. I ended up organizing a organization called Breaking Our Chains, which was specifically around dismantling and disrupting the preschool to prison pipeline. There were two pieces of media that really brought me to that point. The first one was a book called The New Jim Crow by Sister Michelle Alexander, that really, I think the most prolific line in that book is that there are more Black men in prison now than were ever enslaved during the height of slavery. And when I heard that, that just was just so striking to me, right? And the other piece of media was a documentary called The 13th. And so I worked I started that organization to disrupt and work with youth, and to work with teachers, to work with school districts, to stop the criminalization of um, Black children. About 3 years ago, I formed an organization. It grew in, Breaking Our Chains grew into the organization that I'm now the Chief Visionary Officer for, which is called Righteous Rage Institute for Healing and Social Justice, which really focuses on the healing aspects of social activism. The reason why we arrived at that, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. I was first diagnosed with throat cancer in 2016 or 2017. And then I was re-diagnosed last year. And so I knew a lot of that had to do just with the stress of being a social activist, right? And the pressure that I was under, and the things that we do specifically as Black people. Let me say that one more again. Specifically as Black people, to manage stress and trauma, right? And so for me, the way that I managed stress and trauma was through drinking, right? And overeating. Drinking and overeating were the two things that I used to manage that stress. And so I had a complete lifestyle shift in 2020, right? Where I became, I ran my first marathon with my son. Um, I'm an avid jogger, bicycle, cyclist, all of it. So, and I'm a sojourner, which means I spend a lot of time traveling, right? As Trina will tell you, if you pop up on my Facebook, you might find me in Mexico. And I don't mean traveling like around the block traveling. I mean like my passport's getting some usage type of traveling, right? And I think that's really important for Black people to do. And it's funny that I mentioned that because Black women are the fastest growing traveling population in the world, specifically Black women in the United States, because they have disposable income. They want to do stuff. They don't want to just sit up, and stay in the same spaces that they're in. I don't know if Stella getting her groove back, that movie had anything to do with the proliferation of sisters, deciding to go to Jamaica or cruises or whatever, but they be moving. And so that's another aspect to the work that we do, and the reason why we think it's a very healing aspect to it. For me, I think in having this conversation with social entrepreneurs and social justice folks and MSWs, social workers, right? I did tell Trina this. I raised my daughter to be a healer, right? Like, and in raising her to be a healer, we have to understand that although it's crafted in masters of social work, what you really are in Africa or any indigenous society, you would be considered the healers, right? A group of people that have been trained to help other people are what in traditional societies called healers, right? The challenge with that is that in Western society, it's not necessarily framed like that, for one. And two, who heals the healers, right? And so if we were to just have a session and talk about what is your process, your daily, your weekly, your monthly, your yearly process on transferring the stress and the drama and the trauma that you hear and deal with on a weekly, daily basis. What does that process look like? What is your health? What is your self-care regimen look like? I will guarantee you that it needs some work, because my mother was a nurse for 40 years. So I have a particular caring for Black women who are inside of the healing arts, right? The healing, and she was with Kaiser. So of course it was through a westernized piece. And there's just so much drama just when Black women have to deal in the workplace. I mean, y'all can't even wear your hair the way you want to wear your hair in the workplace, much less bring your whole self, right? Now, let me say that one more again. Bring your whole self into your workplace. There's very few spaces that a Black woman, a Black man, or Black anything can bring their whole self into a workplace, into society. And what type of toll does that take on your mind, your body, and your soul? And so what I'm really interested in doing, and what my passion is doing at this point, is working with organizations, individuals, associations, with how do we create healthy habits for Black, Brown, Indigenous people? How do we do that? Because the habits that we had have been broken, right? They don't exist anymore. And then you throw the stress of living in this society on top of it, and it moves to that much more. I have been after my sister Trina for probably about 6 months to a year, right? Because I have a program. I'm like, yo, come get down. And I'm going to tell you, this is the typical Black folk response. I'm not ready for that shit yet, right? I'm not ready, because I know, it reminds me of like when you try to get your friend to go to church, but your friend's so much in the streets that they like, no, I'm not ready to go to church on Sunday yet. It's the same thing with us when it comes to taking care of our health we know that there's a certain level of discipline, a certain level of change that we have to do, and we don't ever feel mentally in the space to make that shift because we're afraid of failing, right? And then that piles on top of it, like, dang, I wasn't able to do that. And so I have gotten her to sign up. So I'm really excited about her committing to be able to sign up for this journey. And this is not about a weight loss journey. This is not about a a yoga journey where we're going to, test to see how many postures you can fit yourself into. This is really about a self-care journey, about changing your mind, body, and soul around how you think about you and how precious you are, and how do you take care of yourself on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis. And so I'll put a pin in it right now. But that's the conversation that I'm getting, that I go around the country and have right now. Our organization has 3 different clients. Our largest client has 167,000 members, where we are doing implicit bias, anti-racist training, and developing self-care plans for their staff members. Our organization grew from having 2 employees. We have over 24 Black, Brown, Indigenous folks that are working inside of inside of our organization to help other organizations and individuals develop a self-help, self-care, self-treatment, self-care plan. And so, Trina, is there anything that I'm missing thus far that we should be moving into discussing?
No, you pretty much covered. I guess we could get into understanding why don't we, try to make ourselves more healthy instead of living in that constant, because some of us are practitioners and some of us work in academia, but even still, there's still stress there because Sharice was just telling me, it's a mindset. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be transparent right now. I'm gonna tell y'all, I went to the doctor because I'm having issues with my rotator cuff. Fell and hurt it years ago. And so here I go, smiling. I've been seeing the same doctor 20 years. We actually grew up together. We're close in age. And, my blood pressure, he said, you were supposed to come back last month. He said, your blood pressure is off the charts. He said, you are going to die. Scared the shit out of me. I'm just going to be honest. And I started crying and I was like, I can't leave my baby. She's 24, but I can't leave my baby. And he didn't even talk about my shoulder. He was like, I'm gonna refer you out to that. We're gonna deal with your internal medicine. He said, you have got to get that blood. So I was talking about different things and I was like, well, I joined this place where I can cycle in the heat, sauna. He said, you can't do that. You taking that blood pressure medicine, the sodium, you'll get sick. That was a wake-up call for me. That was the real deal. It took him saying you're gonna die. And I'm too young. So a lot of this is to help my other sisters, I need to do this. And it's not about losing weight, it's about getting my blood pressure down and feeling good, because I don't feel good. My body aches. I play sports, I've danced, and I've gained weight and I've lost it. So it's taken a toll on my body. So help us understand why we've got to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I hear you.
Excuse me, I'm just being honest.
That's important. It shows you the real, there's a book that I read, and there's a woman that I follow, and her name is Dr. Joy DeGree, and she wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, which is just a very powerful book. I don't know if you're all familiar with that book or not. The challenge with Black people is we don't tie what we go through on a day-to-day basis to how we live our life. Like, our diets are still, for the most part, slave food diets. And then when you start talking about a Southern diet, then what we call soul food is mostly slave food. And I don't mean that as a slight. I mean, it was the food that was given to us to make taste delicious, because that's how dope Black people are. We're gonna take the bottom and make it dope no matter what. But that's what that diet is, right? It comes from that. And so much of how we function with each other. And just to be very transparent as well, one of the major reasons why I moved into the health aspects is because I was in the social organizing aspects, and each of you will probably be able to identify with this. In Black organizations, we'd be working together, and then beef would happen between the different activists. Every time we were about to achieve something socially, we would start infighting with each other, and breakdown the movement would happen from within. So my uncle told me something 25 years ago. He said, if every white person on this planet disappeared today, we'd still be dealing with white supremacy for the next 40, 50, 60 years up here. And it didn't, you know how elder says something, but it don't really ring true to you until you get a little way down the field. That was one of those things, because we would get there and then we can be so vicious to each other. We're more vicious
Very
with each
nasty.
other than we are with who's supposedly out to kill us and get us. And so a lot of what I'm talking about is what I had to deal with my own health, and the impact was just from existing inside of a movement where I was busy watching my own more than I was watching the police or watching, right? And so I say that to say that the amount of stress and pressure connected with the habits that we've picked up from the plantation make for a deadly mix. And so I think the last, what I then went back to understand, sis, is that when you look at the self-help genre, it's white as all get up. You're talking about yoga, pumpkin spice lattes, dog parks. Like, they have completely colonized self-help and self-care, so that when Black people see white folks engaging in self-help, self-care, we don't think that's for us. And the truth is, the way that they present it, it's not for us. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Yoga, when we think of yoga, I know when I think of yoga, I think of some late 20, early 30, blonde-haired white chick with a mat up underneath her arm, heading to class with her poodle and her latte from Starbucks. That's what I think of when I think of yoga, right? That's what most Black people don't understand. Yoga, no, but yoga is an actual practice that was brought to India by the Blacks of Eastern Africa. It is an African art used to deal with stress. Why? Because yoga is about putting your body into postures so that you learn to be flexible, not just flexible in your body, but flexible in your mind. And who is put under stressful situations more than Black people? Right. And that's why we developed it as an art, but that's not anything that we engage in, because it's been taken. The spiritual side of it has been taken. And now you can go and get yoga classes from Karen or, Tiffany or whatever. And we ain't trying to do that shit. Right. Like, we're not trying to be subjected to what we just dealt with from a 9 to 5. When we're trying to decompress, we don't want to go have to deal with all the microaggressions and have Tiffany or Karen try to touch our hair while we're doing our yoga postures, or talking about how big our butts are, and she wished she had something like that, and collagen injected, and you just got this, just a whole hot ass mess, right? And so I say all that to say that when we think of health, when Black people think of health, so oftentimes we don't see ourselves in that picture. So we do see Medea, we do see fried chicken, we see ourselves in Popeyes commercials, but we don't see ourselves in really self-care commercials. We don't see ourselves in yoga adverts or running adverts, or ways to take care of our body. And that's the issue. And so there's this disconnect, because the Black body in the United States was never supposed to be taken care of. I visit the plantation down in Louisiana. And when I visited the plantation down in Louisiana, I found out that the average lifespan of a Black person on a sugarcane plantation was 6 years. 6 years from the moment that you landed on that plantation. So they were going to use your body, mind, and soul for a 6-year span. And the way that, and I'm gonna just get graphic with it, the way that Louisiana slaves died is because they were cutting sugar cane. Their shoulders, I'm talking to you now, Trina, their shoulders would give out and there would be no more cartilage left in their shoulders. So they couldn't move they couldn't lift their arms. Yeah, they lost all arm movement. That was what happened. I'm not talking about one or two people. That is what your life was going to be at year 5, year 6. So we come from that inheritance. We come from that legacy. And that's a legacy that we don't talk about. That's a legacy that we don't address. And so now we're here in 2021, and I have to ask you, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to decolonize yourself, to free yourself? Because really what we're talking about is liberation. You think because you can get a loan and buy a car and do all these things and get a degree that that means you are liberated. But at the same time, you got high blood pressure and you ain't even 60 yet. You got diabetes, you ain't even 50 yet. There are kids now in their 30s that are dying of heart attacks at 30, right? And so I'll just say this is not about body shaming, because I'm a black man. I love big boned women. You know what I'm saying? Like that's you ain't gonna get no black man talking about, no. I like women who are shapely. In Africa, I lived there for 10 years. You can't be walking around like plain Jane, skinny Jane, and expect to get a husband over in Africa. They don't rock like that. If you ain't got no meat on your bones, they don't want you to get it, because in their mind it means you can't cook. So I ain't trying to, this is not about body shaming. This is about your health, like your body, your physical, your mental, and your spiritual health. And you can't have one. To be very honest with you, you can't have one without the other, because as you know, as healers yourself, there's a mind, body, spirit connection. You know, it's not just one. And so that is what the work is that we're engaged in, Trina, is really helping people to see the mind, body, soul connection that was broken up by the plantation and our journey here thus far. So what we try to help people do is to reconnect. In Africa, in West Africa, there's a saying called Sankofa. Sankofa means to go back. It literally translates to go back and fetch it so that you could bring it into the present. So what is it in our ways of health that we have lost that we need to bring back right now into the present so that we can be whole, complete beings in this moment? And so health is not for how many push-ups you can do, how many miles you can run, it's not about that. It's about creating full alignment for your mind, body, and soul.
That's awesome. And when you give us the history, it makes even more sense, because if you don't understand your history, you're not going to understand why. Right. And like you talk about the health piece, but then let's just look at the past year. That's a lot of trauma. We are, like you said, like not to look at this trial with the Chauvin dude, because he said our gates, we have to watch what our gates see, hear, smell. And I haven't been watching. I've watched the news and like little coverage, but as far as watching that trial, I have not, because it's too painful.
Yeah.
Ladies, y'all have any comments or anything?
I have several comments, but I'm only going to I'm only going to share maybe three, maybe two, maybe I'll try. So the first thing that came to mind, well, let me go to the last thing that came to mind when you mentioned the Chauvin trial. Someone asked me yesterday, am I watching? And kind of looked at me with this screwed face because I said no. It's you are re-traumatizing yourself when you do that. Someone sent me the other day, they sent me a link and said, watch this video. And this was a military person. So, ex-military, retired. And so I'm thinking this is going to be, because usually what, when I get this is either this person has received some kind of accolade, or someone this person knows received some kind of accolade or reward, or something good happened. And I'm like, oh, what happened? What's going down over there? And, I lived in Leavenworth for like 7 years. So, I'm always getting stuff. So I'm like, oh, what's going on? I'm missing it. And the video was, I mean, it just was totally left, because it was a video of a lieutenant who was pulled over, that was quote unquote traffic stop. But I mean, what he went through for something that there was no sense in the matter at all. No sense in the matter. But I'm sitting there as I'm watching this video, I'm recognizing my emotional, mental, spiritual responses. And I almost wanted to say to this person, what were you thinking by sending me this video? Do you know where I'm already at? And I'm trying to, as you say, do some self-care. So I was already in that process of trying to decompress and get to a better place of stability. So I was working on my own mental, emotional self at that time. So watching that video didn't do nothing but just take me right back where I was trying to get away from.
That's right.
And I said to the person, my only response to the person was, this was not a good video for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thought that I had at that moment was, we keep sharing these experiences, we keep exposing ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to these experiences, which I think we do need to be aware of the injustices that's happening in our community, to the people of our community. We need to be aware of it. But if we are not cognizant of the impact, the effect that is having on our person, and we're just constantly just consuming this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to drive ourselves absolutely mad,
That's right.
absolutely mad.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't be able to distinguish good from bad. We won't be able to distinguish from right and wrong. We won't be able to distinguish from, this is a positive thing for me, this is not a positive thing for me. But we will filter everything through those experiences that we constantly keep watching. And everything that happens in our life will be based on that will be the foundation. So we're conditioning ourselves
That's
to
right.
think from this racial perspective. We have to have more, we have to have I want to say a dualistic, but it really doesn't it needs to be more than a dualistic. We need to have a multifaceted way of viewing the
Yeah.
life experiences that we have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And W.E. Du Bois mentioned this in one of his books. I can't remember which book that was, but he basically was like, we can't have this dual way of thinking. It has
Yeah.
to be more than just two-way.
Yeah.
We have a multifaceted, multi-leveled kind of way of thinking. But even in all of that, you have to be able to manage.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to self-manage. We talk a lot about time management, but we need self-management. We have to know when your level of consumption, for instance, when you think about filling a pitcher with water, that picture, when to stop, right before that water starts overflowing. You know when to stop, and you will stop filling that pitcher, because you don't want the pitcher to overflow. You don't want water all over your counter, getting all on your floor. You don't want that. You don't want the overflow.
Mm-hmm.
We have to think that same way with what we consume. The
Mm-hmm.
water going into the pitcher is what we consume in our external environment. What are we consuming? Because what we consume, once we get squeezed, it's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have more negativity in us, what's coming out of us ain't going to be positive.
That's right.
It's like when if you squeeze an orange, you're not going to get apple juice. You
Mhm.
know, you're not gonna get, you know, lemon juice, right? You gonna get what you know. So what you putting in you matters. So I like that whole idea of, you know, your gates, because it's true. The Bible speaks about this too. You need to watch, you need to manage, you need to guard your gates.
Mhm.
And what you see, what you hear always translates into what you think and what you do. And so you got to be careful about what you consume, and you have to know when you are too full of the wrong thing so that you can begin to extract or expel or to get rid of the wrong thing and fill it with the right thing so
That's
that
right.
you can be where you need to be. So that's one of the things that I thought. I didn't mean to say all of that, but the the other thing was Sankofa. I'm from New Jersey,
Okay.
and I'm trying to think of the around 2004. I was working in a juvenile correctional setting, and we were encouraged to take this training, and the training was Sankofa. This Sankofa training, this was a violence intervention program that was designed uh, by, I think, Rutgers and UMD&J came together and designed this program. And we all, you know, correctional professionals, we all were kind of trained in that. For the most part, it was, you know, social workers and those who were in counseling and all those mental health kind of deals. Anyway, took the training to become a facilitator of this program, a leader. And it was really expensive in order to do it, but you had to, you know, we took this facilitator training to be able to facilitate the program within our environment. When I left that facility, you know, my uh, facilitator training certificate did not die, like it didn't go away, it didn't expire. And so I actually contacted them and said, I actually need to get that program so I can actually work on facilitating it. At the time, I was living in Leavenworth and I had the mind to do it in Leavenworth. And you brought me back to that because I since moved away from it. And so I just remember receiving the material from Rutgers. I think UMD and J sent it to me. Sent me the material that I needed in order to request the packet, the kit, for me to be able to facilitate the program, because you know I was already a facilitator, so I didn't need to go through the program again, the facilitation program again. I never mailed off my check in order to get the kit. And to this day, I promise you, if I go in my closet, it's still somewhere in one of my files that I had put it in the envelope with the check, sealed it up, put the stamp on it, put the, you know, addressed it and all of that, but it never made it to the mailbox. You just brought that back to my mind when you mentioned Sankofa, and I'm shaking my head. I'm like, yes, Sankofa. You know, I remember what happened. Why didn't I do it? I got distracted somehow, I'm sure, and I just never moved on it. But I'm going to move on it now because you just brought that to mind. And even if it's not myself who facilitates it, and it was for us.
Mhm.
It was for us.
Yeah.
Very powerful program. I'm just like, wow, this is powerful. But it was for us.
Mhm.
And so I said, you know what? Listening to you, I said, I'm gonna have to change I'm gonna have to resign and all that, probably change the date. I'm gonna have to figure out what I have to do, but it's gonna go in the mailbox this time.
I love it. I love it.
So that brought back to mind one other comment, and this is more of a request. At the start of your talk, you said you pretty much, I took it as a question, but it was rhetoric. Who heals the healers? I have been reflecting on that for so long. And Trania and I talk a lot just about different things that's going on in the classroom and all this with students. And I have been pondering different things with regard to my students who are aspiring to be social workers and not understanding what that means, and trying to get them to understand what that means, because they got their own stuff and they don't recognize that they got to deal with their own stuff before they trying to deal with somebody else's stuff. But they think that they can deal with other people's stuff and not have to worry about their own stuff.
That's right.
It don't work like that.
Yeah.
That's counterproductive.
That's right.
Can I use this? Who heals the healers? I want to take this because I feel an article in that right there. I had a whole article written while you was talking. So
Yeah.
can I use that?
Yeah, for
I
sure.
need to use
For
that.
sure.
Okay, that was my
I put his
last
website in the chat. I hope I did that right. Sojournerlife.com. So
I
Yeah.
saw that.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I saw it on the hat. I had
y'all
already
check
written
him
it down.
out.
Yeah, I saw
Y'all
that.
check him out.
I'll put my other organization in here.
Yeah, I need to use that. I need to use it.
He has a way of bringing things to the forefront that it's just like a paradigm shift. It's a mindset reframing that you don't think all the time, think about. And I don't always agree with Soul sometimes, but he opens my eyes to a lot. And like you said, as social workers, like when I was going to school training, I had a little girl, my mother was in a nursing home, and I was just in denial. I'm an only child about what was going on. I'm gonna tell you, the very first class I took, and I felt like that was a part of my healing. It was like I had registered late and I just had to grab what I could, and it was death and dying. And that class educated me on my ignorance about my mother's palliative care. I wouldn't do a DNR. I just didn't want to deal with it. And that I cried all the way through it. But I'm telling you what, I was able to do a DNR and make some decisions about my mother's health care because of that class. And so I knew that that was in alignment with what I was supposed to be doing. And my friends just kind of followed me. My mother died as I went into grad school. And if it wasn't for me learning about myself in those journeys, working 3 to 11, 11 to 7, going to school, I wouldn't be able to do this job. And so we have to listen to our minds and our bodies, and I've kind of gotten away from that. And so I need to get back to taking care of myself, because we hear horrible stuff. Like I had a student tell me, and I'm not gonna get off, she's very well off. She said, we're like the royal family, Black girl. She said, we look pretty on the outside, but we're torn up. Her mother used to beat her and her sister because her dad would travel to Dubai, travel, be gone, beat them. She's an alcoholic. All of them have tried to attempt suicide. She's been cutting her thighs. And so she brought me the knife. So I'm just like,
Yep.
you know, so you got us. And so that's why I made intentionally, I was like, okay, sorry, my daughter, what are we going to do? And she has time for me because she don't have a boyfriend right now. So I said, let's, or either I would have been doing this by myself. You know, let's grill some salmon. We listened to some nice music on the patio, watched our dogs play. You know, that was good for me, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't do that enough. And it doesn't always, I just got to take care of me more and get out of that TV.
Yeah.
Get out of that, get off of the internet and get out of that TV.
TV and social media. I have
Social
to
media.
unplug from social media, even though within this chapter, that is my job. But some days I can't do it. It's just too much. It drains me mentally.
Yeah.
Have you all heard of this book here? My Grandmother's Hands?
You told me about that. I need to get it. My Grandmother's Hands. I haven't.
This is a dope book, right? And he's one of y'all as far as his training. He's an MSW, Master's in Social Work. This brother did an amazing work when he talks about racialized trauma and the pathway to mending our hearts. And this is, Jania, this is the part that you're referencing here, is that there is no, you know, a lot of people move into healing or getting into social work because they want to focus on somebody's problems that are not their own. But you can't heal nobody, you know, until you heal yourself, right? And you could tell the difference between people that are so focused on other problems so that they don't have to focus on their own, rather than people who have this healing, and any serious healer will tell you this, the way that healers help and support you to heal is by they're on that journey themselves. Right? So they're not trying to fix you. Whatever your issue is, they've either dealt with it or are dealing with it. And so they are processing that issue with you and through, right? It's a connection between, if you go to Africa, you got to go live with your healer. You don't get to, you know, go visit them for an hour. They give you a prescription and then you check back in. You actually go live with the person that that's there to heal you. because it's a relationship. And through that relationship, the healer is also healing themselves. It's not just this one way, I'm going to heal you, right? This is that we're going to do, just like what you said with your daughter, right? Let's do this together, right? Your daughter's 24.
Yeah.
So there's boy issues that are floating around there, how does she fit into society, all of that. And guess who else has those issues? Mama got those issues too, right? So
And she does the same work I do, actually. She works in social services.
Right. So it's to pick someone like that as a journey, that's what Black women did, right? That's what Black men did with their sons. When you go through a rites of passage, that's who led you through your rites of passage was your mother, your father, your uncle, right? And you guys go on that journey together, right? And so those of us who have had to go through and get certified through the Western definition of healing have to, again, Sankofa, go back and figure out how did our ancestors heal community? And how did they heal themselves from healing community? Because like you said, what you got somebody bringing you a knife that they're cutting themselves with. What do you do with that? And I'm not even talking about the knife. I'm not talking about the knife. I'm talking about psychologically.
Yeah.
Where does that get placed for you? And if you don't have a healthy way to place it, it gets placed in E&J, it gets placed in margaritas, it gets placed in Popeyes, it gets placed in all kind of places that then burden you with that spirit of pain. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. So it's like as MSWs, you are sucking the poison out of the people that you come into contact with. But if you don't have a proper way to transfer that poison out that you sucked out of that person so that they could be healthy, then you ingest it. And before you know it, you are dealing with health issues. Before you know it, you're dealing with relationship issues. Before you know it, you're dealing with all kinds, because you have not had a proper way. You're dealing with a westernized way of how to heal people, which is you tell them what to do, you hit them with a prescription, I'll check you out in 2 weeks, right? It's not I just pulled this energy off of you. Where do I ground that energy myself? Where do I transfer that energy myself so that I don't internalize it and then, begin to poison myself with that energy? And so fortunately for me, my daughter is also trained in the spiritual arts as well, right? So she knows how to pray and pray things off of her. She knows how to meditate. She was raised in meditation. She knows how to use affirmations. She knows how to cook for herself and eat healthy. She knows how to do those things because she was shown those things as a child. She grew up in Africa. She dealt with healers there. So she's equipped. That's the Sankofa piece that this group would do very well. To be honest with you, Trania, that really is the purpose of this group, right? Black women don't need another networking group. Y'all network better than anybody on the planet. That y'all got the AKAs and the Deltas and the Sigma Rho's and all kind of other networking organizations. But where's the mass organization where massive people who do social work come together and get on each other about how are we healing? How are we transferring? How are we self-caring for ourselves? How are we, making sure that the people that we're servicing are getting our best selves, right? Because when you're on an airplane, you know the deal. The captain tells you put your mask on first before you help the person next to you. Black women are notoriously poor at putting on their own mask first. They take care of everybody before they put on their mask. Everybody. And because they do that, they're not even able to give the best of themselves to the people that they put in mask on because they ain't giving that best of themselves to themselves first.
Can I just add something to that? Because you said a
Please.
lot of things, and there's several things that's popping in my head. I'm gonna try my hardest to remember what I wanted to say. But this whole thing about what you just said just now, we as Black women being notorious about helping everybody else before helping ourselves. Well, that's been conditioned
That's
in
right.
us. Okay, so you went back to, talking about your experience on a plantation and what you've learned and all that. Well, that was what we were
That's right.
conditioned to do, not worry about ourselves. We were to take care of
Mhm.
everybody else and
Mhm.
neglect ourselves in
Mhm.
every way. So we continue in that same vein
Mhm.
today. We live in a society that expects it. It's
Mhm.
part of the culture. We live it in an individualistic society now, all for yourself. But the problem is we have picked up, the every man for yourself
That's
in the
right.
wrong way, for, focusing on
Right.
the wrong things, as opposed to focused on what we need to be focusing on. We picked it up for the areas that is really
That's
creating
right.
harm and really
Yep.
killing us slowly, as opposed to
Yep.
helping us to heal. So living in this society, living in this westernized world has literally flipped
Mhm.
the script for us. And we don't recognize
Yep.
that it's been flipped. We've been, deceived in so
Yep.
many ways that, you can't count
Mhm.
on your hand. It's been flipped, but we haven't recognized that we need to flip back because we become comfortable, we become complacent, we become, you know, we've assimilated to this way, and we have decided that this is a good way, right? But even in that, going back to this whole idea of
Mhm.
togetherness, um, coming from a collective society,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
that's our history, although we lost it. Um, it was all about doing things together. The Bible talks about doing things together. You never look at the Bible and say, everybody got to do their own thing by themselves and come back and report and all that. No, you never
Yeah.
walk alone. You never
Mhm.
walk alone. From a
Mhm.
biblical perspective, you never
Mhm.
walk alone. And so, with that being said, because we live in this society to say, no, you do it yourself, you know, and let me know how that
Mhm.
works. Let me how
Mhm.
that go. And I might assist you, I'll think
Right.
about it, if it benefits me, I'll, but if it ain't gonna benefit me, I don't know
Right.
about that,
Right.
you know. But then you come back to this idea of togetherness because you're going on a journey. It's not a journey that is quick. It's a journey that takes time. It's a process. It's a learning. Me and Trini were talking about learning earlier. It's a learning. And the fear of learning. So we've gotten to a place where we've even accepted ideas that we're incapable of learning beyond a certain
Mhm.
extent. We have embraced ideas that we're crippled, and other people have
That's
projected
right.
those ideas
That's
on
right.
us, and we've embraced them,
Mhm.
that we're crippled. And so since I'm crippled, I need you to help
Mhm.
me, and I'm not able to do nothing until you
That's
help me.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we have that going on, but that has also all of that plus other things that I'm not mentioning because I'm trying to be brief, even though I know I'm not. I'll be trying real hard though. And all of that, we've lost this journey that I'm speaking of, that you talked about. I'm just kind of I'm bottling up. It's a journey
Yeah.
of walking together to get to that place of healing, but you don't stop. That's the only thing. You never stop the journey until you take your last breath. That's when the journey stops, right? So you're constantly on the journey. It's a lifelong journey, but even this lifelong journey, in that you learn resilience.
Yes.
That's being stripped from us
That's
now.
right.
We don't have that anymore.
Yep.
We don't know resilience. Resilience is a foreign thing to us. We won't have nothing to do with anything that's going to build resilience. We don't want to have nothing to do with that.
Come on.
We don't want to feel uncomfortable.
Come
We don't
on.
want to feel, we don't want to have fear. We don't want to have concern. We don't have anything, which is a part of the journey.
That's right.
But we don't want that.
That's right.
Because we want to feel good all the time. At all times, we don't never at any point in time not want to feel good.
Yeah.
But that is how we, so everything that's going to make me feel good and make me feel like, you know, I have arrived and all that, that's all I want. I don't want nothing else. And the minute you challenge that, I'm in crisis.
Yeah.
The minute you challenge it, I'm in crisis. So therefore, you never give yourself the opportunity. You reject all opportunities to build resilience.
That's right.
Even though you've learned or you've been told that this is good for you, it is necessary. You cannot get to a place of maturity, right? Because as we get older,
Mhm.
in that same way, we're supposed to be maturing
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally,
Mhm.
physically, spiritually. There's this process of maturing. It's a journey, a lifelong journey.
Mhm.
If you stunt your growth, you won't get to
That's
that
right.
place of maturity.
That's right.
Stunting your growth, meaning resilience, right? If you don't allow the process of, you're stunting your mental, your physical, and your spiritual growth because you don't want to develop that resilience, among other things. But that's the thing that kind of came out to me as you were talking.
That's a whole word right there, sis.
So
That's a whole word.
it's really important for us to recognize how we are compromising ourselves, and we don't realize the many ways that we're compromising ourselves. What we're basically saying is, kill me.
Right. And
Let
that's
me
what's
die,
going on.
let me die a slow death, but I'm gonna be. I'm trying to remember what this movie was. Someone said something to this person, and they was like, "Well, at least I'll die with, eating a cheeseburger or something crazy," and they were like, you don't want to do well. At least I'm gonna be happy when I go. I'm like, what sense does that make? My mother used to say stuff like that. She used to say, "All I've got to do is stay black and die," and I'm just like, what? That doesn't even make sense. But that's that mentality. That's that mentality of, I don't want to, I just want everything to be just easy going. Right. I just want everything to be easy going. I don't want to have to do nothing that's going to be challenging or whatever. But you don't develop what you need in order for you to get to that place of maturity. You don't develop resilience. And resilience is what we need, especially now in these kind of days that we're dealing with all of what we're dealing with, even though we've been dealing with this before, but now it's on steroids. And we see it, every day, as often as we want, as much as we want. And then all the stuff, our entertainment has shifted and it has changed. And I try to, block. There's a lot of stuff that I don't watch. And people are like, "Oh, did you see that?" No, because it ain't gonna help me. It's not gonna feed my spirit. So I'm not gonna watch it. But there's a lot of things, even now, the stuff that you see, the commercials that you see, it's just. I don't know how you have a perfume commercial, but it's all about the whole scene is sex. I don't understand. What does sex and perfume have to do? I just don't understand how that works. But even now, it's like we have become so desensitized to the things that we need to be sensitive to. And we have become sensitive to the things that we don't need to be sensitive to. Does that make sense? And so it's just, we jacked up. We're jacked up. And we need to get to a place where we recognize that, accept it, and begin the process of, as you say, healing. But it's going to take you changing your thinking, changing your mind about what you see before you and what you've accepted for so many years.
Yeah.
I'm not of the mind that once you get to a certain age, you're stuck in your ways. No, that's crap. That's somebody else's saying that. I don't know who said that, but that's not true. That's not true. Until you fall and your breath is no longer in your body, there's always opportunity for change and for growth. And so I'm gonna stop talking because I feel like but I'm gonna stop talking. But this has been a real powerful, and it's got me thinking. It's kind of bringing up a lot of stuff that I've just been thinking about, and just I mean, if you can see, my phone is filled with notes. I got papers and sticky notes because as I'm working, I'm thinking about stuff is just popping up. I'm like, oh yes, let me write this down because I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to share that because these are just these revelations that I keep getting. And what your talk is basically just pulling on a lot of the stuff that I have just been mulling over for a good while, good long time. And I was telling them, well, I don't know if I was telling you all, but my mother passed away in 2009. It was a couple of days before Christmas. And that was a life-changing event. My grandmother passed away 2 years before her, around her birthday. That was life-changing. Then my mother passed away. That was life-changing. But then what really flipped the script for me is when I had my cancer scare last year. In May is when I learned that I had to have surgery due to this, issue. When I say that was some kind of wake up call, and I know you mentioned it earlier, when I say I started to trim the fat, and when I say trim the fat, I think we've had this conversation, Trania. Trim the fat, meaning all that stuff that ain't got no purpose, no meaning in my life, that's not part of my mission and my vision for my life, it got to go. Yeah. And I just started, when I tell you I was on boards and a part of organization, I just started sending resignations that I can't, because this is how, and somebody said, how could you do that? I just did it. Was it hurtful? Did I feel like, man, I've invested in that? But I said, you know what? For my own mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, I have to do this. Otherwise, I'm going to be in a position to where I can't even help myself.
That's right.
So I had to start just letting things go. I'm like, I don't care how long I've been apart. I don't care what position I got to let you go. And I have to get down to what matters.
Yeah. That was the name of my cancer journey, was Trim the Fat.
Really?
Yeah. That was the name of my journey, because to your point, we hold on to, so those of us that are working in community and working for other people, our job is to hold space for people.
That's right.
We don't learn how to hold space without holding their shit, right? There's a difference between holding space and then holding their shit. And if you're not careful, before you know it, like I said, you'll end up taking those things on. And so one of the things that we do in the Sojourner Life program is we make you create a daily habit schedule for yourself. All successful people have a daily habit that they create for themselves. And that includes diet, exercise, meditation, prayer, all of it, like that you do on a disciplined basis. Because there's habits that you engage in now that you do every day that are unhealthy habits. And you do it without thinking about it until you go to a doctor. Listen, Trania, I got a story for you, right? I'm diagnosed with cancer the first time, and I'm going with a partner of mine gets a phone call from her cousin that they're about 6 blocks down and they're getting into a fight, her younger niece. Mm-hmm. I tell her, she's like, let's hop in the car. I say, no, let's not hop in the car. I got surgery tomorrow.
Yes.
Excuse my language. This feels like nigga shit to me. And because I grew up around nigga shit, my nigga shit sensitivity antenna is still sharp. When somebody in the hood tell you just to hurry up and get over here, then I'm like, I need some more information. Like, what's going on? But sure enough, we hop in the car, day before my surgery. We hop in the car, we pull up, we get out the car. The girl, the niece, sees us and she's upset because now she can't really get into the nigga shit the way she really wanted to, because she got elders there now. 2 minutes later, this 22-year-old girl pulled out a MAC-10 and she's pointing it at her boyfriend, who they got in an argument the night before, and she lets off 3 shots at him. His boy runs out the apartment, he pulls out his shit, and he starts shooting all, and now we're running down the block. And then we finally get home and I turn to my partner and I'm like, that's why I didn't want to. And I'm telling you this story to let you know that us as Black folks oftentimes don't take care of our shit until we in some nigga shit. Until we're at the doctor's office and he's telling you, you about to die. Then we're like, I might need to switch some things up. And I'm not pointing the finger at you. That's what it took for me.
That's
right?
what it takes.
That's what it takes for people who are so wrapped up in surviving that we're no longer wrapped up in living. And there's a huge difference between surviving and living. And so what we want to give and share with Black people is, when do you get to the living part and get out of the survival part? And in order to do that, you have to develop healthy daily habits. How you wake up, how much water you drinking, what vitamins are you taking for yourself? Are you walking? Are you exercising? And I'm not talking about, becoming some super fit, gym sensation. I'm just talking about circulating your blood through your body for 30 minutes, 3 times a week. That's all I'm talking about. I ain't talking about something major. And that is just to do the basics so that we can survive, so that we can then move on to live. And so that's really what if you visit the website, that's really what we're talking about. That's what we're really supporting people with. And Black people are our target for that. As far as, creating some healthy habits in us, and y'all down south, which means y'all closer to where the plantations were. And that mentality, I've spent time in Texas, like ribs and barbecue. You can smell that deliciousness like miles away. So to say no to it, you really have to have a higher God to be like, yo, I can't do it. But if you're going through trauma, it becomes comfort for you, right? Yes. And so that, creating healthy habits in those environments are challenging. But like my sister said, we have to build up a resilience towards creating healthy habits for ourselves. So that we can move from just merely surviving to actually living. And Trania, I heard you say it so beautifully when you talked about, yo, I used to be a ball player. Like that shit goes off quick, right? It's like, when did I stop being a healthy ass ball player to somebody who, as soon as they open their eyes in the morning, you can start counting the aches that you got on your.
That's the truth. I mean, I was like, what happened to me? I used to dance 7 days a week. I used to play ball. I played dudes. I would go play guys. And it's like, once I had my daughter, I had my daughter at 26. And then, being a mother, taking care of my mother, I decided to go back to school, eating on the run, working on call, that crisis intervention. I've been doing this like 20 years. And it has taken a toll, drinking liquor.
Right. That's right.
I don't drink a lot, but I like to drink on the weekends. And now the hangovers, they rough. I'm just being honest. And so, like, if, for example, I started my eating healthy, but I went to a friend's house and baby, they had boudin, they had sausage, we had gumbo, we had crawfish. And I partook in it, and I was just like, I need to get my blood pressure cuffed. But then I came back, and I haven't had a starch since Monday. I've just been trying to just, eat plant-based.
Good.
I got me a diet, and I need to.
I think she's having technical issues.
And he just let it go. I started pouring me a margarita because I started feeling that tension because I love them so deeply. And I don't want to see them fight like this. And I started pouring that margarita and I was just sitting there listening to my sister. I said, well, Trina, you can't take this on. That's not your fight. You can't fix them. Because me and my nephew are not speaking right now. And I told you about this, so he getting on to me about my weight. He was probably correct, but the way he did it was out of line. And I'm going to talk to my nephew, but it's just you take on so much, and everybody calls me for everything. Like my church is back open, so they worrying me now. I shouldn't say worrying, but I've been a member of the church. I'm 52, 48 years, and so it's just a lot. And I think that for me, this has been in my 50s a year of reckoning and recognition. I can no longer hide behind any more excuses. And I feel like God has been talking to me and say, you need to lose some weight. Way before that doctor's visit, you need to lose some weight. And the reason you got so mad at your nephew because there's an element of truth there, but you just didn't like the way he said it. Mm-hmm. You need to get in shape. You can't hardly walk to your office. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, man, this has been good for me. And so I didn't know if I registered correctly for the Sojourner Life. I'm gonna go back on and
I'll get you up there. We'll get you up and running by Wednesday. No,
okay, because I didn't know what I've missed. I've been so out of the zone.
My mother had a mild stroke on Monday. But she's an Aries woman, so her birthday party is today. And, there we go.
Yeah.
So she told her doctors on Tuesday that she needed to be better by Saturday so that she could go to her birthday party. And y'all
having a party tonight?
We're having a party tonight at 5:00. So, I lost my father, as you know, Trina. I lost him a year before last, and
yes.
Again, those are all very transitional, life or death thinking, and so I know our time is very limited here. Very limited. What is the Bible? No one knows the day nor the hour.
The hour. You don't know.
So, it's important that we live as much life in the moments that we are given, and we do our best, our job to the Creator, to give thanks. What we show is, listen, I'm gonna take care of this vehicle in case you're gonna give me some more days, right? And so that's what I'm engaged in doing. And so I really thank you for inviting, sis. I reached out. I mean, I'm very accessible. Trina would tell you.
I was worrying him to death. I was like, where is So? We need to talk. But I was gonna call my cousin and say, give me HSO phone number. You
have my phone number. Yeah. Here, I'll put my phone number.
Just text it through Messenger. And I don't worry him a lot, but he's a brother, and I look to him just for some real guidance, because he's real dude, real people. He knows what's up. And I hope that you ladies, I hate that did too many people join because they missed a treat today. Because this is some things.
Listen, I'll come back. Okay. So I think this is a good foundational conversation, just because what I'm seeing that's really important is that you have these group of people together. You've got these group of women and healers together. There's things that you can engage them in, but a lot of people, a lot of the healers are they themselves dying on the vine because they're not taking care of themselves. And so that's what I'm saying. Let them go get their social networking done somewhere else. But what would it look like if you all had a healing group where what you were really focused on is making sure that y'all were sharing recipes and diets and exercise classes, and like you all are focused on healing the healer, right? This becomes the healer group of people. So you come here we know you're a healer, but how are you healing yourself? And we're going to hold you accountable to healing yourself in this process. So if you live close by me, let's go walking, or here's a spin class, or here's if you live nearby me, let's go have lunch at this new place that has salads and smoothies and whatever. Let's share recipes. This is going to be a heal the healers group, is the way that I would visualizing like what's really necessary for healers to really engage in networking around being able to heal themselves so that they can heal others.
We're having a retreat next month, and maybe this could be just a small piece that we could add. We're just trying to prepare. And this is important because we want to do some real work. I mean, like Dr. Sharice has some amazing ideas. People in the group, we just, it's hard getting us together, and we need that healing piece in order to be effective in the work we want to do.
That's right.
And so I always say each day at work, I have to be on for my students. Whatever at that door, I got to leave it there because I got to listen. I got to hear what I'm not hearing. It's just so much an assessment.
That's right.
And I have to have hard conversations. And so this has been great for me. I've always known the minute I met you, this is my cousin's best friend. And he talks about him all the time. My cousin was born and raised in Denver. And you know, he told me, he said, Trina, Soul's cancer came back and he was hurt, you know. But I'm so thankful that you are on a whole nother tip. On a whole nother level. And I told him, I said, I can't explain A Soul. He's kind of like Dick Gregory on a modern take. He's real, he's honest, and I hope you guys have enjoyed him. He's my brother for life, and I'm so thankful to share this space with him.
Thank you for inviting me here. I put my number there. You got my website, so if any of y'all ever need anything, I'm here for you. Thank you, sister. I love you dearly. It's a pleasure meeting everybody else here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for you.
Yeah, and tell mom happy birthday.
I
His
will.
mom is so pretty.
I will. I'll do exactly that. I'm
Yes,
over
Aries chick right here.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Lord.
Don't do us like that now.
Oh Lord. Listen, y'all ain't even gotta say nothing. That's why she laughing. She knows she a handful.
That can be, I guess.
Yeah, right. All right, Trudy. Trudy, I'll talk to you soon, sweetheart. Love you.
All right, love you.
Don't go away too fast. Don't go away too fast.
I won't.
I want you to stick around for a few minutes, please.
Okay.
Trania, would you like to close us out?
Yes, I can close us out. If I had some people here, I'd say we welcome to the Central Texas Association of Black Social Workers. And I would tell you about our membership and how you can reach out to us. But since we don't, thank you, H Soul. This has been good for me. I mean, we could talk for hours about this. And all it takes is like, we know that with the people we work with, we want that light to go off. And so the light has gone off with me. I'm not perfect. I'm gonna try and try to do this thing, and then hopefully pass this information on to other people. As for my people, because we're in crisis mode, man, and we gotta learn how to live. And that's what I want to do. I want to be out of survival mode. Because as a single mom, baby, I was constantly in survival mode. I'm telling you, I'm gonna share this story with y'all, and you can close out, Sharif. I drove to Mesquite, which is an hour and a half from Waco, Dallas area for grad school. Coming back home, it was a thunderstorm, me and my friend, and it was raining so hard that one of my windshield wipers quit working. I can't see nothing. And she's like, just drive straight. And I'm like, what the hell is drive straight? I can't see. But eventually, long story short, made it back home. The nursing home calls. We don't think Miss Cooper gonna make it through the night. That's my mom. And I'm like, how am I gonna get there? And all these things run through my mind, this is it. How am I gonna get there? Needless to say, I've been in survival mode since my mother had a stroke.
That's right.
2000. My mother's house was foreclosed on in the month of April, and my grandmother died the same month. My mother couldn't handle it. I'm an only child, and I've got to learn how to get out of that surviving, just trying to make it mode to breathe. And I have periods where I do it, but not a lifestyle of it. So it just made me think about that. It's just like, of all the nights for me to basically couldn't figure out how to drive on the freeway home, to get to the nursing home, to say goodbye to my mother and release her, and then prepare for her funeral. Because I wrote the program, I did everything.
Of course.
Didn't have to ask anybody for a dime, and I'm so thankful for that. But I say all that to say is just, I've had to learn how to just change and get out of that, man. It's just how we were raised and eat bad. Because I come from a family that eat chitlins, pig feet,
That's right.
You know, I'm an oxtail chick myself.
I used to be, that's my jam right there. Don't play with me. I mean, I've been a vegetarian for 3
I
years.
looked up at my cabinet, I seen that cornbread. I was like, well, see you later. Because I love some damn cornbread and greens, you know. Now I can eat my greens, you know. It's just changing. I buy all the wrong food, you know. So I'm thankful for you, and I hope my two social work sisters have taken something from this as well.
Well, I can't wait for my daughter to join this group.
Oh yeah, my baby Maja, she's on fire. Do you hear me?
Yes,
Like
she just got in today too.
Did she? He asked me to mentor his daughter. We met, we kicked it off.
Yeah.
And I just kind of gave her some ideas. And I mean, like I talk to kids all the time. This girl that graduated from college in California has moved to Cleveland. I'm like, you already moved? I said, you're not playing. No, ma'am. And I did her a letter of recommendation. So she's gonna be fuel to the fire, man. I can't wait to see her work. She's hungry, she's green, she's ready to do it.
Yeah.
And that's because of her parents. So
yeah. Thank you, sister.
Well, it was a pleasure. You asked me to kind of close out. It was a pleasure to have you. And I'm thankful for all of those who will be viewing this after this point in time when we post it. Thank you for taking the time to review this discussion that we had, which was quite lively. It was a very informative discussion, but it was meaningful and valuable. And it is something that I hope that as you listen, you would recognize those golden nuggets and you would take note of them and you begin to think about how to incorporate and integrate them into your life and then begin the process of working through and working on your own journey. If you are not on one, definitely begin to set that start point and begin. And really, it's not really setting a start point, it's just doing it. Just do it. Don't even, kind of think about how to do it. Just do it. Just begin. And then as you are going on that journey, you'll begin to develop the wisdom that you need to continue on the journey. So with that being said, as Trania has mentioned, this is Central Texas Association of Black Social Workers. And if you are interested in getting to know us or participating in any of our future events, you can reach out to us by sending an email to centraltx-absw@outlook.com. Again, centraltx-absw@outlook.com. See you next time. Take care.